Hello there, Lynx here. Welcome to Pale Cachexia. I still think I might have butchered the title. I'm sorry. Anyway, as I said in the previous video, a gift of sorts from the devs. They wanted me to cover the game. Green light for the entirety of it. Wonderful. As usual, link to the game in the description, so feel free to buy it. No, it's not sponsored, don't worry. Anyway, let's get to it. Another day of rain. Also, normally I have this weird rule that I don't start recording after 3 AM. It's 1 minute before 3 AM, so it's okay. Not a strong storm, but a steady one, quietly smothering the house in a downpour that had seemingly lasted for weeks. Huh? Who are you? Dark, heavy drops largely coursed down the window pane, forming jagged patterns that soon dissolved into nothingness. His gaze followed their ambling paths, watching them aimlessly and without pleasure. But there was nothing else to look at. No impulse to pull him out of this empty staring and to do something, anything, that would serve more of a purpose. How long had he been standing here? Bizarrely, he couldn't remember. Had it been minutes? Hours? Was it morning? Evening? How was it possible to tell when the clouds blurred all sense of light and time? It was only her occasional visits that separated the days for him. That soft, timed, infuriatingly insistent knocking. A reminder that she'd left a tray of food outside his locked bedroom door. Always, followed by an uncertain voice calling out for him, then a long pause, before finally, her soft footsteps padded way down the stairs. Is it her father? Little wretch, he whispered flatly to his affection, which only stared back at him with grey irises. He'd hauled himself in here to be away from both them and her. Away from her constant smiling, her laughter. That boundless energy that seemed to be mocking him for his pathetic state. That twisted, ungrateful creature. He should have believed his instinct about her from the very beginning. What is he talking about? With an immense painful effort, he pulled himself away from the window. Leaning on his splintered cane, the man staggered towards the bed, where he collapsed onto the sheets like a puppet with severed strings. As he curled into a fetal huddle and hugged his arms around his body, he ran his fingers across the sickly protrusion of ribs pressing against his skin, sharp bones contained by only a thin layer of flesh. If he held himself like this, he could feel the hard, slow, arrhythmic beating of his heart. The tightness in his chest made it difficult to breathe deeply, and so his inhales were shallowed and jagged. Was the anxiety, his health, or worrying about his health that made his ribcage feel like it was always being crushed? He rolled over onto his right side, closing his eyes, trying desperately to ignore the uneven pounding in his chest. Trying to breathe deeply, to calm himself down, to reassure himself that he still deserved to live. a lovely smell, like herbs and flowers, sweet, delicate, and earthy. As Esther slowly forced her eyelids open, that pleasant scent greeted her with the morning sun. And she thought, wow, the sun actually reaches this place? I had to, sorry. She blinked around in confusion. This unfamiliar place. Was she dreaming? What kind of place had she walked in? But as her mind dispelled this haze of sleep, the previous night's events came drifting back to her. The forest. The Manor. Seina. All of it was real. Esther dragged herself up into a sitting position, rubbing at her eyes with one hand. Then her gaze drifted down to the floor, where a small mug sat by her feet. Curious, she bent down to pick it up, and realized she'd been smelling the fragrant tea inside. After one sip of the warm drink, she felt instantly refreshed. It was like filling her lungs with cool, crisp morning air, a restorative that washed through and cleansed her system. Is it really alright to ask her that? I don't want to push her. She just looks so tired. I don't know. A soft muttering caught Esther's attention. Glancing over her shoulder, she saw Seina sweeping the floor with a thoughtful expression, lost in whatever she was contemplating. If only you didn't hate visitors, Papa. I really could have used your advice.
Ciotto mate, what do you mean? But he... Wait, is he actually not dead? What the heck?
Seina shook her head, sighing wistfully.
Oh, you're awake!
Suddenly seeing Esther's gaze, she let out a soft gasp and hurried over to the couch, her features quickly brightening into a smile. With both her hands, Seina clutched a broom that had to be twice her size, although she didn't look encumbered by it at all.
Hello, Seina.
Hello, Seina. Thank you for the tea.
Oh, it's nothing. I hope it hasn't gotten too cold. I can make a fresh pot if you'd like.
It's fine. You don't have to do that.
You don't like other people doing things for you, do you, Esther? I'm sorry. I'll try to be better about it.
Esther averted her gaze, somewhat embarrassed by Seina's keen observation and apology.
I kind of understand why. Basically because she believes that, you know, you are helping her, you are doing stuff for her because she has that sickness, right? And not of the kindness of your heart, as it actually is. Well said, Lynx, well said.
Have you been cleaning since you got up? I didn't hear you at all. Clearing her throat, she swiftly changed the subject.
Yes, I have. There's a lot to clean this big, lovely house, so I need to do a little every morning and evening.
You must clean real well. It's like there's a maid living here.
Oh, really?
A happy flush rose to Seina's cheeks, and she bounced her toes a little.
Well, it's not a chore or anything. I love cleaning, actually. Papa worked really hard to repair the house and make it pretty. It was a lot easier to clean when he was here for.
Then what was you talking earlier? Oh, I'm so confused. Is he dead or alive? Oh boy. Or was she referring to basically 6+ years ago? That he back then didn't like visitors. I'm so confused.
Some of the rooms are a little run down, I don't use them, so I don't touch those as much, but try my best to take care of the others, even if it's not perfect.
Her smile wilted slightly, as she was disappointed in herself for not keeping the entire house pristine.
It's still amazing. Even if I loved cleaning, I couldn't care for this whole place alone. Of course you could, Esther.
Seina responded without missing a beat, giving a determined nod and tapping her broom on the floor.
Anyone can do anything they really want to do, that is. They just have to figure out what way is the best for them.
Oh my god, I need to lay back actually.
The other girl's confidence caught Esther off guard. She didn't seem to have a single cynical bone in her whole body.
But anyway, I do hope you slept well. I'm sure you must have been very tired. I could see it in your eyes. They were so shadowed.
A hint of concern crept into Seina's voice as she studied Esther's face closely.
You do look a little better today, Fa. Not as gloomy. After I finish your tea, shall we go take care of the grounds together? If you're feeling up to it, I mean.
I am, yes. And it's the least I could do to repay you.
Esther.
Seina seemed like she was about to remind her there was no need to repay anything, and Esther was taking this all far too seriously. Esther was quite used to hearing that response, despite the fact that nobody ever seemed to really mean it. However, this girl was different.
Whatever makes you the most happy. That's what a good hostess would say, I think. Just don't overwork yourself, alright? I feel like you're stubborn enough to keep going until you faint.
Alright. After beaming at Esther encouragingly, Seina hoisted her broom up and cleared her throat.
Aha! Alright, I'll go finish sweeping the kitchen while you drink your tea, then we'll go out. Oh, it's such a lovely day. I can't wait to show you around. I'm so excited.
With a delighted sigh, she rushed over towards the kitchen, her broom swirling across the floor in a flurry of motion. What a peculiar girl she was. Maybe it was to be expected, considering she'd lived all alone for so long. Nobody was forcing her to try and fit into with normal society. For that reason, Esther couldn't really get a grasp on her behavior or her personality. And that made her all the more curious about the story behind Seina's unusual situation.
It is unusual, yeah. I believe at least.
After she finished her tea, Esther made her way to the Manor's entrance.
I mean, I feel like the only situation we could have heard about. I mean, I've heard about, you probably as well, where people were basically, let's say, stranded, right? Not really stranded, they lived in their own house and so on, right? But for many years, and they were in Siberia, right? If I remember correctly. So that was crazy, and when they were found out, they still thought it was World War II, right? That was nuts, by the way. Like, there was no information at all coming to them. They were basically also, I mean, let's face it, so behind with technology and so on. Just, I mean, I don't know, they probably stayed where they were, right? But if they were dropped into the society, how it developed, that would be definitely mind-blowing for them. And I mean, at the same time, I'm curious how they would react to all of that. Anyway, to all the progress and so on. Anyway, I mean, over here we have 6 years. Somehow she still seems to be, I don't know, the same as she used to be, I'm guessing. I mean, she has no problem with contact with people, apparently, so there's that.
After she finished her tea, Esther made her way to the Manor's entrance.
I'm still curious about what that key was for.
Seina, who's already eagerly waiting for her, led the way out in the fresh morning air. Ow, my back.
You can tell it's an old house.
As Esther's gaze drifted up to the radiant blue sky, it almost felt like she'd been transported to a different forest. The dark, oppressive atmosphere of the previous night had vanished, transforming once more into a fairy tale shimmer. And with Seina's company, the woods didn't seem quite so vast and daunting, or so as lonely, for that matter.
True that. At night it quite literally, to me at least, looked like swamps around the building.
Alright, we're off to the well first.
Reaching down beside the front door, Seina picked up 2 buckets from beneath a protective cloth. Although both were decently sized, one was smaller and looked less professionally made, as if an amateur had crafted it.
Maybe it is self-made, right?
After a brief pause, Seina held the larger bucket out to Esther.
Maybe that's the correct way.
In that moment of hesitation, her gaze misted over with a distant look.
Shall we?
She reached out to take Esther's free hand with her own, holding it gently. It seemed like a subconscious movement, as if Seina hadn't realized she'd done it. The sudden warmth of those lightly calloused fingers caught Esther off guard. Normally, she always disliked being touched. But curiously enough, Seina's delicate grasp didn't give her the same sense of discomfort.
Yeah, let's go.
Seina gave her a soft, contented smile, although it seemed more melancholy than usual. An unexpected sadness briefly tugged at Esther's chest, and she had the odd sense she glimpsed something she shouldn't have.
Whoa, sorry about that, if you heard it.
Hand in hand, they wandered across the manor grounds, heading for the well out by the garden. Neither of them spoke.
I'm actually curious how other areas look like.
Only the sound of the birdsong,
Oh, there is some, yeah.
and their light footsteps in the leaves filled the air. It seemed strange for Seina to be so quiet, but Esther was a little relieved too. She didn't feel any pressure to speak. Briefly, she wondered if Seina had completely lost herself in thought, perhaps even forgetting Esther's presence. But as if she could somehow read Esther's mind, Seina glanced over towards her. The smile on her face had grown contented once more, most traces of sadness drying up beneath the warm sunlight. The warm sunlight, I'm sorry.
Old style.
As they stepped up to the well, Seina came to a halt.
I think I used one like that. In my grandpa's place, sorts of. I mean, technically he's also living in a apartment complex. Used to live back then as well, but he had the area with garden and so on. And he had a well like that, I believe. If my memory is correct. I believe it is. Because I remember using this stuff once or twice. Anyway.
As they stepped up to the well, Seina came to a halt.
I'll let you go first if you like.
She turned to look at Esther expectantly, tilting her head to one side. Nodding, Esther turned towards the well, scanning over it hastily.
I still, got to admit, I love her eyes. Okay? I love her eyes.
It had to be quite simply, surely.
I mean,
all she needed was to tie the rope to the bucket. That was it, right? Surely she could just lower it down afterwards. She wasn't very good at tying knots though.
ooh, that would be problematic if the thing would drop there.
She wasn't very good at tying knots though. What if it couldn't...
Well, that voice is actually destroying me, but I want to continue like that.
What if it couldn't hold the water's wave? And she lost Seina's bucket down the well. Esther realized the other girl was watching her closely, eyes widening in realization.
Have you ever drawn water from a well, Esther?
Stricken with a sudden sense of self-consciousness, Esther shook her head. It seemed like such a basic thing to do, and yet she never really had the chance.
Really? But how do you get water?
We have a water pump. The servants are only the ones who use it. As Esther spoke, she started feeling more and more sheepish. Talking about servants made her sound so privileged and haughty. She hoped Seina wouldn't think less of her for it.
Huh? So the water comes right to you? And you have servants fetch it, so you don't even have to do any work? That sounds amazing. You must be something like a princess or a noble.
She studied Seina for a moment, trying to tell she was being teased. But the other girl just peered up at her with wonder and curiosity, her gaze sparkling excitedly. I'm not a princess. A lot of people in my city have servants. We only keep a few. But some families have dozens.
What? I have none. Dozens?
As if trying to imagine such a thing, Seina closed her eyes, laying down an envious sigh.
There must be so much more to the city than what Papa told me. It's like an reward or something, isn't it?
For some reason, that thought made Esther feel a little crestfallen.
Well, even if you were a princess, I don't think it would matter.
Her focus returning to Esther, Seina put a bright, confident smile, like she'd suddenly come to a realization about something.
As long as I know where you come from, and you know where I come from, we should be able to understand each other easily, right? And it makes me really happy to hear about your home, even if I know I'll never fit in there.
What do you mean?
The warmth of Seina's smile was contagious. Even if she doubted the other girl's words, they put Esther slightly more at ease. Seina didn't seem like she'd ever judge her for not knowing something. I don't think you'd like the city, so it's not a very nice place, but it's all I've ever known.
Oh, I'm sure it can't be that bad. Both you and Papa come from the cities, after all, so there have to be some good people there.
She punctuated her words with a confident nod, unfazed by Esther's hesitance.
Anyway, shall we fetch some water? I'll go first, so I can show you the best way to tie the knot. Here, just like this.
Esther watched as Seina secured the rope to her bucket, lowering it down with the winch until it splashed into the water. Afterwards, when she mimicked Seina's note with her own, larger bucket, Esther felt a wave of relief when it managed to make the return journey. Her smaller companion seemed thrilled too. It was an unremarkable feat. Perhaps she was just excited to impart her knowledge.
Maybe. I mean, she probably... Oh my god, sorry. She probably was excited about the fact she was not alone already, right? That fact alone was definitely giving her a lot of happiness.
Buckets in hand, they set off towards the gardens, water cheerfully splashing with each step. Despite Seina's small frame, she carried her full bucket with little effort.
I mean, she's been doing that for 6 years, so... if not more.
Years of solitary labor must have been her strength that belied her size. Esther felt her arms already getting slightly sore from the heavy wave, but she made a determined effort not to show any trace of discomfort in front of Seina.
Nice. Damn.
Sorry again. I mean again for 3 AM, so yeah, after. Ugh.
Here we are, Esther. My garden. What you think?
It's wonderful, not gonna lie.
As they came to a stop among the rows of neatly planted crops, Seina swiveled around to look up at Esther eagerly.
I can't believe you do all of this alone. It's so pretty and well kept. You really think so?
Esther nodded, her gaze drifting across the diverse, meticulously cared for vegetables and leafy greens with admiration.
I know, I think there are tomatoes here, but other than that I would have no clue. Maybe carrots? I'm a disappointment, given that my other grandfather, when we lived in one house with grandparents over there as well, right? Because that house was sorta bigger, but whatever, we no longer live there. Anyway, so he was running his own garden as well, right? And there were 2 greenhouses as well. But anyway, there were tomatoes, potatoes, carrots, and so on. And I'm a little bit disappointed in myself that I don't recognize what is the stuff that Seina here grows in her garden. Then again, all I've ever did there was water the plants.
Well, actually, Papa was the one who made the first garden patch here. He wanted to live off what he could grow and forage for himself, because he hated relying on other people. I only saw him visit the city a few times a year. He taught me how to do everything by myself too. Well, not everything, but he did write an almanac and foraging book, and he made them really easy to understand, just for me. So as long as the earth is still alive, I know I'll be alright.
Oh, we are moving, okay. There's still the cemetery left, right?
Humming contentedly to herself, Seina led the way over to a large watering can that sat near a row of peas.
Peas. Do we have peas? We had peas as well. Oh. I'm pretty sure those we didn't see over in the CG. But I might be wrong. Cabbage.
Once she'd emptied her bag into the can, she traded the empty vessel with Esther, a convenient way to hold plucked weeds. Luckily for Esther, weeding wasn't a task that needed much instruction.
Wow, this place looks so different when there's some sun, right? I know we don't see much, but still, there's some greenery to it as well. I'm gonna be yawning, I'm sorry, I apologize for that really, but yeah, I'm sleepy. Not to mention technically I'm on foot for a long time. For 20 hours now, more or less. Damn.
It didn't take long for them to settle into a comfortable pace together, with Seina watering and fusing over her crops, while Esther put out unwanted sprouts. Although gardening had never really appealed to her before, it surprised Esther how relaxing it was to work with her hands like this.
Okay, it is relaxing, not gonna lie. Sure, I was doing only the watering, but I like doing that.
Working side by side helped diminish the awkwardness that still lingered between them as well, and before long, Esther felt comfortable enough to break the silence with a question.
Okay, I was actually also picking out the fruits, like apples, cherries, and so on. I would say especially cherries, because one of the three was so easy to climb. Anyway.
Do you ever get nervous when it grows colder? In case there isn't enough food to last you until spring, I mean. Oh, no, not really. Some plants grow all the way through the winter, and things like potatoes will last for a while in my pantry. You can dry out berries, and mushrooms, and nuts are always good.
I hate nuts, to be honest.
Too. There are a lot growing around here, so I never run out of those.
Motioning towards some shrubs at the edge of the clearing, Seina hefted her watering can of the light ground before she continued.
Did she mention something about a river as well? I don't remember if she mentioned it or I mentioned it for some reason. If there was a river, I mean, she could also always try fishing, right?
Actually, I think it's quite fun when a new season comes along. It means I can plant new foods and make new recipes.
Ooh, self-taught, I like that.
I'd really miss winter if it never came. Even if the house does get icy cold. Icy cold? Isn't it cozy by the fireplace? As long as you're covered in blankets?
I mean, it's a huge house.
It's a little bit drafty still, but with some hot tea, it's perfect. Oh, that reminds me, I have to show my winter recipe book sometime. I'm making a new spring one, since I've been trying a lot of different things, and there are really so many amazing combinations you can have with just...
I think Esther is enjoying her time there.
With a small smile warming her face, Esther listened as Seina began recounting tales of her recent cooking and foraging adventures. It felt so calm and comfortable somehow. Perhaps Seina had noticed how little Esther liked to speak, so instead of asking too many questions, she lightly chattered away about lettuce and peas, her voice filling the silence like the bubbling of a stream.
I mean, it's gotta be nice actually growing your own stuff as well. I wish I could actually be able to do that. Who knows?
After they finished weeding and watering, they brought their empty pails and a few small trowels to venture outside the clearing. Eager to share her knowledge, Seina guided Esther to the best foraging spots she'd found, pointing out which berries, nuts, and wild greens were best to gather. The more that Esther learned, the less harsh and daunting the forest appeared. Surviving in the wild always struck her as a daunting task, but Seina's simple, cheerful explanations made it seem like something anyone could accomplish, as long as they put enough effort. None of this seemed like work for Seina either. It was almost like they were just playing together instead. Esther couldn't help but envy her energy and enthusiasm, the way she managed to take so much joy from everything. And yet, at certain moments, there was something unusually determined and purposeful about her effervescent happiness. As if it were another method of survival, just like her gardening or foraging were.
Huh. I mean, it is a fight for survival.
The sun is so bright today. Oh, look! It's already been past midday. Time's been flying much faster than normally does. All this work made me really hungry. Are you hungry, Esther?
A little bit. She forced her words to sound nonchalant, but in reality, Esther was just as famished. Normally, she had to force herself to eat or simply forgot about all of that. But not today.
Is that your stomach growling?
No. It was probably just the wind.
Alright then. Well, if you wait for me on the little log near the garden, I'll bring back some food for us. I'll just be a few minutes, I promise. Meet you there.
Twirling round, she bounded off in the direction of the manor, her hair fluttering wildly in the wind. Her constant energy never failed to amaze Esther. Already, she could feel a familiar deep fatigue waving on her shoulders, as much as Seina's presence helped distract her from it. But she was determined not to succumb to the feeling today. There was too much left for her to do. Following Seina's footsteps back towards the clearing, Esther made her way towards the fallen log near the garden patch. Before long, Seina's small figure trotted back into view, a splash of white and pink fitting across the grass. After stopping briefly at the well, she approached Esther's chosen picnic spot with careful steps. Balancing two bowls on one arm, with carrying a bucket of fresh water in the other.
Here we are. I just made something small and quick, but it should give us enough energy to finish today's chores.
Beaming proudly, she offered Esther one of the bowls. It held a hearty salad, topped with lentils and various seeds, a red berry glaze glistening on the leaves. I'm hungry now. Tucked into each bowl was a generous slice of warm bread, lightly toasted from the stove.
I'm getting hungry.
Thank you. It looks delicious.
It's really nothing. But my baby lettuces will be so happy to hear that. They always like a bit of encouragement.
You talk to your lettuces.
I usually chatter with all my plants. They were the only friends I had before you came here.
With that slightly quieter, more subdued statement, Seina settled down beside her on the log. At first, Esther felt slightly awkward, caught in the wake of Seina's earnest words with no idea how to reply.
I have a feeling Esther might have thought like, yeah, but eventually I will leave still, right?
Which is kinda heartbreaking. But once the smaller girl took a bite of salad and started to munch away, Esther followed suit. Her mood instantly lifting from the sweet berry flavor that filled her mouth. They took turns using a ladle to sip the water Seina brought, its crisp coolness as refreshing as the morning breeze. Although they didn't exchange any words while eating, the atmosphere between them gradually settled into something calm and comfortable. Now and then, Seina would glance over at Esther, offering a little smile as soon as they made eye contact. She seemed happy just to be able to share a meal together. In a way, Esther could understand why. Normally, she preferred to eat alone. Other people made her feel self-conscious about her shyness or the way she ate her food. But somehow, Seina's quiet company didn't bother her. Now that they were a little more familiar with each other, perhaps the other girl didn't feel like she needed to constantly feel the silence all the time.
Alright, boys and girls. Because I believe there are boys and girls watching. Actually, let's let the girls finish their meal in peace without our interference. And we'll continue tomorrow. I will drop to sleep and I will probably fall asleep immediately. This game is so good. Honestly, absolutely honestly, if it wasn't middle of the night, if I wasn't tired, if I wasn't on my foot for so long already, I would go on. And this episode would be way longer and I would continue afterwards as well, but I need some sleep. This game is so enjoyable. I enjoy it a lot, not gonna lie. Like, I love it. I love it. I like how the atmosphere sort of changed here from creepy to, you know, like kind of like, I don't want to say gives family vibes, but it gives the friendship vibes, you know, the friendship growing between the two. That's awesome. But for now, hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a wonderful day. Remember that the link to the store page, Steam store page of the game, is in the description, of course. So you can go and buy the game yourself. And I mean, support the dev, of course. And they can create more thanks to that. And I mean, this is the first game I'm playing from them, and this thing is quality. So I mean, hopefully there will be more eventually as well. But okay, have a wonderful night, or I mean, even more appropriate time for me, have a wonderful night. Bye bye.